So you went through that very anxiety-provoking time where you were, Harry wasn't well. You were trying to get information, and it was gradually coming over, and it was looking serious, basically.
Yeah.
Then you referred from the eye consultant to another consultant.
Yes.
And which specialty was that? Was that in neurosurgery?
Yeah.
So what was the next step then, in terms of really finding out exactly what was wrong, about how serious it was, and what treatments were likely to be most effective?
We had to go to hospital a week later to the Friday clinic, which was for the neurosurgery, for Harry to meet a consultant, because they assumed naturally that they would operate on Harry. The week of the build-up, the waiting, the nerves, and just thinking we're really going to get some answers and we'll be able to move forward from this, really just got crushed when we went to the meeting. The neurosurgeon took a look at Harry's scan, had a look in Harry's eyes, at the back of his eyes, you know, with all instruments, got Harry to follow his finger, which was a normal thing that obviously they do. And then he said, I need to find out further. Harry's tumour's in what they call the hypothalamus, which is right in the middle of his brain. He said, I can see it's from the centre, but I need to establish where it's growing from. To do that, Harry needs to have another MRI scan. And that's all he could tell us. And as wonderful as he was, the words, the empathy, we were left a bit shell-shocked. So it was off home again and wait. But I couldn't wait, you know, and I left it 48 hours and I was back on the phone. And then we had to wait till the following week for Harry to have an MRI scan. Still none the wiser. Just that they needed to know more, and I just sort of wanted to go, just have him in hospital and, you know,
get it sorted out.
And because obviously this was our life, you know, this was our little boy, and we just, if anything, we just didn't understand. Did
he tolerate all these toings and froings to the hospital and then having special tests like the scans? It's not easy for a little child to go through all that, is it?
No, but for Harry, you know, it was something different. It was something new. It was Mommy picking him up from school, you know, leaving work, picking him up from school, and Daddy going to the hospital. And it was, you know, it was just something that for him at this point, it hadn't been, you know, he hadn't had anything that made him uncomfortable. So for him, he was none the wiser. You know, he was still just Harry, and he liked meeting new people, and I think he was interested in what they were doing, actually.
So there's a novelty to it.
Yes.
You could almost sell it to somebody undergoing tests as a young person that, you know, let's do this. Let's see what the hospital's like. Let's see what so-and-so's like.
Yes.
Rather than it just being a big oppressive thing.
Yeah.
Because right then, you don't actually know how things are going to turn out.
No,
you don't know what's everything.
And he looked the same. He was as jolly. You know, to look at him, you wouldn't think there was anything wrong. And actually, apart from the time when Harry was on chemotherapy and had his radio, the whole of the journey, you would not suspect that there was anything wrong with Harry. Visually, and also because of his positive nature, you know, and his jolly character that he was.
So did the MRI scan show where the tumour was?
Yes, eventually.
As well, that it was likely to be?
Yeah, it eventually came through, and then they had to have Harry in hospital for a biopsy, and by which time a few weeks had gone past, and when we had him in for the biopsy, that's when we met an oncologist. I didn't even know what an oncologist was, and it was only when I got home that my dad said, gee, this could be cancer, this is a cancer doctor. But the doctor came over, the consultant, who's actually now a professor, and I can totally understand why. He came over, introduced himself when Harry was on the ward, explained that he'd gone off, and I think he could see that we were just at breaking point from the not knowing, from the waiting. I explained how long we'd waited, and he said, as soon as I get those results, I'll be back on the phone. The following day, because obviously a biopsy for Harry, they had to put a needle in theatre which went straight through his head, through his brain to the actual tumour. And there was a lot of risk involved with that, you know. And then I just remember seeing Harry come back, going down to theatre. And that was the worst for us at that point, you know. We didn't know things were about to get a lot more, intensive. Definitely. So to see him and go and collect him, and woke up sobbing with a bit of a shaved patch on his head and a plaster on top, and my head hurts.
He was feeling a bit sorry for himself.
Yeah, well, he was still in recovery room at that point, but it was a shock for, when you've not had a child that's been maybe accident prone or... but we got him back to the ward, and then his doctor came round and he said, as soon as I've got any news. We got home the next day, and as soon as we got home, my mum was there, and Harry went straight to sleep. He was tired, and he called us and he said, look, I've got the results. If you want to come in and see me, my clinic's Tuesday. And I just said, please, we can't wait. And he said, if you can be here in half an hour.
Wow.
And he dropped everything to give us that, because it was a Friday and we'd have to wait all weekend. Straight away, me and my husband got a taxi. We were straight back up to the hospital. And that's when they revealed that Harry had got what they thought was a pilocytic astrocytoma. It was growing from his hypothalamus, which was hard to reach, and basically told us it was cancer, but a slow-growing cancer. And I always remember him saying, sometimes the faster cancers, they're more aggressive, but they are quicker to treat in terms of chemo works better.
Okay.
And he said Harry's is a slower tumour, but that actually can mean sometimes it's harder to treat and the chemo takes longer. And but as soon as they mentioned chemotherapy, I was like, gosh, you hear stories and you never think it could be you.
Yes.
And
how long had it been at that point then, from the beginning of the journey, from when Harry was first getting those symptoms?
It was about, from first getting the symptoms, we're talking a year. Talking a year.
So it was an extended period, really?
Yes, yeah. And for us, and that was that frustration, it's... but the level of care that we then started to receive once they knew, but you don't understand at the time that they need to do all of these investigatory scans and procedures to get you to where they know what they can hopefully treat you with to cure you,
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a frustrating time, and but it's just something that you have to get through the best way that you can.